sedentary family. I think the story is I did a somersault in my crib and they took me to the doctor or something like that. They thought, is there something terribly wrong with her? Started in dance, you know, ballet, like a lot of little girls do. And the family lore is different than how I remember it. I remember it wasn't very good. It took me a long time to get it. It's very intense training, and you have to be, it's not a willful and intellectual process. You have to be broken a bit, you know, they have to, you have a master and you listen and you do what they tell you to do. And once I got the hang of that, you know, 7 or 8 years into it, I got really good. Dancing has less abandonment in it than one thinks. It looks that way, it's actually incredibly calculated. You know, there's passion and there's you know, you bring everything you've ever been to dancing. But unless, you know, there are different forms of dance. I mean, I was doing very classical stuff, so you're not really presenting yourself in a way. You're a vehicle for a choreographer, so it takes a long time to really become an artist as a dancer. You know, the art part comes in quite a bit later. Do into fifth, all the way around. The arm and head work together. Look at the bar, turn your head, and up and back. And just the arm. Good. I'm totally inspired by them. I mean, you know, an original movement, you know, people come to me and they move differently than everyone else, and it's fascinating. You have to resist the temptation to iron them out and to make them, you know, you get somebody with like very curly Baroque hands, you know, I've seen that, and you're like, oh, but that's so beautiful, I don't want to make it too ordinary, you know? And so I'll, you know, fix it a little bit, get it within the realm of, you know, of the reasonable, but then I want to see something that inspires me to think of something different. I can't teach everything that I know, and I can't make them into, you know, it's not instantaneous dancers, so I try to give them enough so that it will hook them, so that it feels like to do a little bit of movement away. It's a very, very easy thing and very related to what we did at the bar, but do something in the center and give them the feeling of having danced, and then they want to come back. But I know a lot, so I have to be, you know, not have to tone down the enthusiasm and just specifically teach them what they need to know. My enthusiasm is enormous, so.
No, I couldn't tell.
If you're a bad teacher, you can ruin people. You know, you can iron out all of the creativity and all of the lust and the passion. It's really easy to just run right over that and say, no, it has to be this. And it's like, why does it have to be that? I'm not making prima ballerinas. Yeah, I want people who are going to be the next generation of great dance artists, circus artists, and I want them to move beautifully. So give them the vocabulary to, you know, ballet is so much about transferring the weight and making the foot nice as it leaves the ground, and understanding, you know, the weight of air, and, you know, there are all these kinds of ideas, and once they get that, then they can do what they want.
And you want to pull the passion out of them.
Yeah, otherwise why work this hard? The 2 boys in class who were clowns were like, this was so hard. This is really hard. It's the hardest thing that you learn in the circus school is ballet, because it has the most rules and the least amount of glamour in the beginning. It's quite different than any of these aerial forms, because you're not engaging the body in the same way. The body's actually quite relaxed in ballet, except where it isn't. And where it isn't is the lower half is really working like crazy, and the upper half is holding the space, and that's a different way to work. When they first come into class, they have these engaged shoulders and this like really tense through here because they need it to hang on a bar, you know. And I have to just let go of that whole thing and stop forcing, you know, all of these muscles in here to do things and just relax them. One art form informs the other. I stopped dancing. I mean, at some point the body doesn't want to do that, and 20 years or so from beginning to, you know, end was a lot. And I tried to do things that were very different, actually. I tried not just other art forms, but really like business and politics. I mean, I really just went very far-reaching, because I thought once you learn dance, everything else is easy. And and I was right. And then it finally came together again when I became interested in circus, and thought I liked the movement of circus. I was very charmed by circus act and clowning and things like that. And I started to fly, and then that was its own thing. That really felt like dancing in the air. Yeah, I guess a defining moment was I met a very interesting man named Sam Keane, who's a kind of a men's movement icon. And in his 60s, he went to circus school. I was at a conference in Guanajuato, Mexico, which is a very long story. But there I was, and I was seated next to him, and he was talking to me, and I was not paying attention. And then he said, and then I set up a trapeze in my backyard, and I turned my chair around. I was like, you have all of my attention right now. And I couldn't, here's this man in his 60s talking about flying and what this did for him, and he'd written a book about it, and then he said, well, I happen to be doing a workshop in a couple weeks, and I thought, don't ask twice, so I went, and I flew for a week with him, and it was startling. I just thought, I got my wings back, because I felt very injured from dance, and I wanted to get off my feet, so I got into the air. It felt incredible. I got carried away with flying and flyers and circus, and kind of accumulated a crowd of people from new circus and traditional circus. And we put together a professional school because I wanted the kind of training that I had and that inspired me and informed me as a youngster. I wanted to, sort of create a community where this stuff was taught, but in a serious way. And there are a lot of recreational schools to learn all these circus art forms and dance forms, and it's not a good way to learn it. You have to learn these things seriously. There are rules, and you need a mentor, and you need the levels of respect and the crowd. There's a whole setup that you need, and I thought, I think I can create this because I really understand what it is, and it's missing, and there isn't a school like that in New York. I made a place where people could practice and invent things, but with a lot of form, and they all study dance with me. The best part of my day, honestly, is to teach dance and to give that, because I feel my generation is the last that really that studied with people who trained authentically, and I trained authentically, and then I'm not sure what happened after that. It got a little bit watered down, as all fields do. I feel responsible for, passing it on, and there's no other way to learn dance. You can't learn it from YouTube. I can tell. When someone says, oh yeah, I learned this whole thing from, I picked it up off the internet, like, you can't, you have to have a teacher. So I feel like I have to be that teacher. I quote my mother all the time in ballet class. I'm thinking, well, she never danced, but she certainly understood inscription and writing and line and diagonals and defining space and one bit of space against another space and how that exists, and all of that stuff is, abstraction and expressionism, and it's in dance as well. I feel really inspired by my students and by the young people who are defining what circus is going to be and what dance is going to be, and they're making all these new forms, which are these hybrid forms of, with visuals and fine art and movement, and there's just a lot of things going on, and then the dimension of being in the air as well. This is the problem where I'm not as good a business person as I should be, is I never have anything in mind. Is that I always think with my artist head, and I like to do the thing that comes up. I'm prepared and all, but I don't have and here's the 10-year plan, and that's how a business person has to think, and all of my business associates always say, Suzi, get out of the artist head. You're just enjoying the moments and saying, this is going to be so interesting, then we'll put it together like this, and you actually have to have a goal. And I'm only 53, I'll learn it. I'll figure it out. I have a goal.